everybody. I'm Amy, Fiber Arts Amy here and on Instagram. Welcome to my Flosstube. My dogs, I have this like huge mess spread out around me of fabric, and so my dog is like all riled up and wants to know what's going on. So I'm here for Flosstube number 11 today. Welcome. I hope you'll like what you see. What I'm going to do today, I'm not going to do like a regular stitching update. I have pulled out my fabric stash. I've had some requests for me to go through my fabric stash, and my fabric stash is in like dire need of some cleaning and some just organizing. I have a lot that needs to be put away. So I dug out my fabric stash, and I thought I would go through that with you today. But while I'm doing that, I'm also going to be specifically picking fabrics for a few patterns. I have Alice from Mirabilia that I want to pick a fabric for. I have, this one's going to be the easy one. My daughter has asked my mother to stitch, let me flip to the right page so you can see the design, Pegasus from Teresa Winsler for her. Now I just need a standard like antique white or cream fabric for that. Nothing that exciting, but I've got to have some standard fabric in my stash somewhere for that if I haven't dyed it all. So I need to dig that out. Oh, I have floss rolling. Pardon me if I go off camera a little. Freya? My dog does like to tear up floss. And then I don't have the cover photo in my project bag, but I also want to pick fabric for August Peridot Fairy from Mirabilia. I thought I already had picked a fabric for it, but when I went to my project bag for that design, I see a photocopy chart. I see lots and lots of floss and beads, no fabric. So apparently I still need to pick a fabric. Oh, the little zipper fob thing came off. Oh, it's a little bent. Let's see what I can do about that. Okay, so I'm going to go through my stash, and while I'm going through my stash, I will talk about picking those fabrics and why I might be looking for one thing but not another, or you know, whatever. I'm not going to hold up like every single piece of fabric, and I want to show you the chart. I'm not going to hold up every single piece of fabric and you know, show it to you. There's hundreds of pieces of fabric here, maybe more. And I'm not gonna make you sit there and watch me, or I'm not gonna film me like cleaning everything up at the end and maybe like organize, ooh, you couldn't steal that. And you know, putting every piece of fabric back where it goes, but I am going to take this opportunity of having everything out to get as organized as I can. So I'll go ahead and get started. I've talked about this a little bit before, but I store my fabric a lot. Some of it's in a cloth bin, and then a lot of it is in cloth bags. Some are store-bought bags, some are simple bags that I had made for myself. If you've watched my floss tubes, you know that I quilt. I also sew. I love making bags. And oh, my dog's hitting the tripod again. I have a lot of bags that have been made, including a lot of like just really simple like totes that are just, you know, there was no pattern. It was just kind of bag in a bag style, flip it inside out, handles simple. So as my stash grew, what I've been doing a lot of the time is just grabbing some of the old tote bags that I know I don't particularly plan to use for anything in particular, or that don't get used so much anymore, and I just put you know, stacks of fabric in the bags. I don't use plastic. I've talked about it before, but so I'm not going to go through it a lot now, but there is a belief, and I have witnessed it in person, that the off-gassing from plastic, the off-gassing chemicals, can change the color of certain dyes, certain types of dye. I'm not an expert in dye chemistry specifically, but I know it can happen. I don't want it to happen to my hand-dyed fabrics, especially knowing they're going to get stored for long periods of time. So I stay away from plastic entirely for my fabric storage, at least my hand-dyed fabric storage. Some of them do come in plastic, and I don't get real worried about it. I actually, I've mentioned this before, I prefer it when companies like have the label on the fabric, like attached to the fabric as opposed to attached to the bag, because I can't keep the bag because that can affect the fabric over time. So sometimes things stay in a bag until I'm motivated enough to like make a tag to go on the fabric itself. When I'm doing my own tags, I usually actually use a scrap of fabric and a fabric marker, and or even sometimes just pen or whatever, and I just write on a scrap of fabric and I pin it to like the very edge of the fabric with a quilting safety pin, you know, like a rust proof, which aren't like forever rust proof, but still rust proof safety pin on the edge. So okay, I don't really know how to do this. I don't have a great plan, but I'm just gonna start talking and we'll see where it goes. Okay, hopefully this will work. All right, so one thing that I have in my closet is actually, well, let me say first, the vast majority of what I have is 28 count linen. That's what I buy typically. Most of what I stitch and kit up are Mirabilias, and I like to stitch my Mirabilias almost all of the time on 28 count linen. I prefer linen. I like using natural materials as much as possible, so I tend to stay away from the synthetic blends like Lugana and whatnot. That's just my choice. It's what I prefer to do. So 28 count linen, I like the slight variation that you get. I like that natural look of the slubs and everything. I really enjoy that. I feel like it adds some more character to my piece. I'm never trying to make my piece look perfect. It's handmade. I don't mind it looking handmade. So mostly my stash is 28 count hand-dyed linen. But I do really like the occasional small, the occasional samplery kind of thing, or primitive kind of thing, or witchy kind of thing, Halloween designs, that sort of stuff. And I really like stitching things that get finished into like a box or that sort of thing. So if I find a pattern that is the right size to fit into this box, but only if you stitch it on 40 count linen or 40 count, well then I need 40 count, you know. It's not, if I try to stitch it on 28 count, it's not going to fit. So I do have a much smaller stash of kind of oddly, what are for me, oddly sized or odd counts of linen. But that includes like, sometimes patterns call for 30 count, 32, 36. So I have a little bit of those things. And those linens, when I'm buying a color, I mean, I definitely buy just like colors that I like, but I'm not picturing a Mirabilia on them, if that makes sense. So I'm more likely to buy more like primitive shades and like more neutrals, because I know those are the designs that are more likely to end up on those counts of fabric. I'm not going to stitch a mermaid, at least not a Mirabilia mermaid, on 40 count linen. So I keep these, and there's more, this is part one of the stack. I keep these just actually right now they've just been stacked because there's not that many of them on a shelf in my closet, which is that way. It's the closet I was sitting in front of if you watched my Mirabilia stash dive video. The closet is kind of awkward to get in and out of just because there's stuff around it, so it's hard to get the door open all the way. I have to move some spinning wheels to really open the door all the way and get some of these big bins in and out. So that's why a lot of times stuff just gets stacked up on a shelf in there until a day comes where I feel like doing a full stash dive, and I'll pull everything out and organize and put things where they go. But anyway, so these are higher counted fabrics. I have this one. I love that this is XJU Design linen. I love that XJU Design does this. They'll send like little samples of their linens when you place an order, and I'll just show you some of them. This is another XJU Design. This is the only 46 count I have because I haven't run into a pattern yet that requires anything more than 40 count. But this is very pretty. I don't know what I'll do on this, maybe Halloween. So I have a stack of, oh my goodness, are these all 40 count? They might be. Oh yeah. So these I think are all of my 40 count linens. And I have a couple in here. This is Spanish Moss from Hand Dyed by Stephanie. That's pretty true to color right there. It's beautiful. In Silver Mist, 40 count. So I have Fabrics by Stephanie and some XJU Design. This is 40 count Dwarf from Picture This Plus. I'm going to just show you some of the highlights. 40 count Valor. I also have just some standard fabrics. Here's 40 count Angel Hair. Just some standards in here. I've mentioned before, here's 40 count Swamp. I like Swamp. I bought a lot of Swamp from Picture This Plus back in the day. I feel like it works for a lot of things. I know some people really don't like it. Although there's a lot of variability in its dyeing, I've found. This is a Seraphim. I have some 40 counts from Seraphim. This one is stonewashed. I really like Seraphim fabrics. It's pretty good representation right there. And when I'm buying 40 counts, I usually get a fat quarter. I just don't do a lot. Like, there's not even, you know, if you're going to stitch some of the really large historical samplers, there's some pieces out there, you know, that would require a fat half of even 40 count. I think probably even if you were doing some long dog, I don't know that for sure, that you might want a fat half. But I don't do that much of 40 count stitching. And typically, I'm just going to need a small piece to do a small for 40 count to like finish into a box or something. So I typically just order a fat quarter, unless I'm ordering a piece for a specific project, but I don't usually need to. And I really, really am working on stitching from stash as much as possible at this point. So these are my 40 count linens. I just keep them stacked. They're so pretty. Just keep them stacked on a shelf. Okay, next in my handy stack, I have, oh goodness gracious, there's a lot. I think that's 32. I have 36 counts. And I better not, while I'm doing this, I'm thinking about that Teresa Wensler piece too, but I don't think I should give my mother 36 count. My mother stitches, but I wouldn't call her an avid stitcher, and I don't want to panic her. This, I've lost the tag, but this is an XJU Design fabric that just looks fun. I don't know that might be like a good Halloween project. I don't always get like sometimes tags from stores. Does it tell me? It's called Woodland Moss, but I don't know who the dyer is on this, but I like it. It's got like purples and greens. It's hard to see there, but it's really nice. Again, I usually buy a fat quarter. Here's a couple of fat quarters of Seraphim. What is that word? Finian? I think it's Finian. This one's Finian. And this one is Antique Lace, and apparently I lied. These are fat halves. And I think I bought a couple of fat halves. I believe it was when I was kitting up. It's not His Eyes on the Sparrow. It's the other one from Heartstring Samplery. Consider the Lilies, which I haven't started yet, but I have kitted up and ready to go. I bought a few fat halves of 36 count because I think you need that for Consider the Lilies. And I bought a few options and picked one, but these will get used for something. This is Colonial Parchment from Hand Dyed by Stephanie. I have some standard fabrics in here. Oh, so I used to be in the Be Stitch Me Fabric of the Month Club. I'm not anymore. The club was great. I just had, I didn't need any more fabric, as you will see. I was initially in it. I was getting, I think this highest cut she does is a 28 count, or a fat quarter. I was getting 28 count because those don't always work for Mirabilias for me, but I can stitch the smaller Nora Corbetts on them. I was in that, I don't know, for maybe a year or something, and decided to switch to 36 count. And she has like a neutrals option or something, and so I switched to that. So I was getting the less colorful fabrics. And so I have a number of 36 counts from Be Stitch Me, and they are lovely. I love her fabrics, and I haven't really had bleeding problems with her fabrics. Sometimes like a little bit in the pre-wash, but nothing that ends up causing a problem when I'm actually washing a stitched piece. So these are all from the club. This one's Grog. This one here is Stonehenge. Can't read backwards apparently. Oh, also Stonehenge. Oh, but see, look at the variation there. It's just good to know. These are both Stonehenge. The bottom one is absolutely darker. They're both beautiful. And just a good reminder that if you want pieces to match, like if you're stitching like the Mirabilia Queens and you want them to be all on the same fabric, you should buy all of the fabric at the same time, because it can vary. Through the Stones is one of my absolute favorite Be Stitch Me fabrics. Sorry, getting notifications. Absolutely love it. I'm stitching, I can't remember what, but I know I'm stitching something else on that right now. I think on 28 count. And this one's Bronze Age. These will just be great for some of those smalls that I do. I've got a nice stack of neutral fabrics also from like Be Stitch Me. Okay, this is one of my recent favorites, is Dolphin. I think this is just a Weeks fabric, isn't it? But I think it's the WDW, meaning Weeks Dye Works. I've really enjoyed, I'm stitching a Blackbird Design Halloween piece, I think, on Dolphin. I don't know how it washes yet, but it's, this particular piece that I'm stitching is one that won't get washed, but I really like that. It's like, you can tell like the dye is kind of like sitting on top of the fabric, like you can see the kind of underneath color. It's just, it's complex and beautiful, and I really, really love it. Yeah, the rest of these are mostly standard fabrics, and I have raw linen. I love, love, love plain old raw linen. I'll stitch almost anything on raw linen. It works, you know, in my opinion, for my stitching, I feel like it works for almost anything you've got out there. I would even stitch, you know, if I run out of stash one day and, you know, I'm not gonna invest in any more hand-dyed fabric, I would absolutely stitch pretty much any Mirabilia on raw linen. I love the look of it. I love the classic look it gives to a piece. Okay, so those are my 36 counts. Kind of wish you guys could see the mess. Also, what I was going to do is pull out some options for the 3 pieces I talked about. Sorry about the dinging. The Alice, and especially the Alice and the August Peridot Fairy. And then I'll switch, or I'll try to switch my camera around so that it's pointing down so you can actually see me do like a floss toss and how I make the final decision. All right, I have a stack of 32 count linen. if I can get, oh, 32, is this 32 or 30? It's all just stacked together, so that's 32. Okay, so here's my relatively small stack of 32 count linen. I have some from shops that, this is beautiful, but the shop didn't know what it was. Here's some title from Picture This Plus. I've mentioned it before, I'm not shopping at Picture This Plus anymore. I will absolutely use the Picture This Plus I have in stash. I think there's a lot of other companies that have much better customer service that I'd rather work with. I actually never got my full, I know I've mentioned it, I never got my full Christmas in July sale order from Picture This Plus. Hanging Thread actually just contacted me a few weeks ago and was like, look, they sent your order again and just canceled out, or they sent what should have had the last of your order in it again and just canceled out your item. Like, we just don't have what you ordered. Do you want to change to a different company? And so I just subbed out a different company. It's just, I've just kind of had it with Picture This Plus, and I'd rather support some of the other newer dyers that are out there. I have some Fiber on a Whim 32 count, and these I certainly could stitch a Mirabilia on. You know, if I thought that a Mirabilia was a really great fit for one of these colors and I didn't have something in my 28 count stash, I might do that with a 32 count, depending on how bead heavy or bead dense areas of the Mirabilia were. So I've got some, this is Fiber on a Whim, this is Cypress, which I just think is a beautiful color. I've also got Night Sky from Fiber on a Whim. Again, when I'm buying 32 count, I'm thinking more about primitive or like Halloween designs when I'm picking colors that are like just for my stash. This is Murky. You know, I know people really love Murky. I don't think I'm as in love with it as a lot of other people are. But I have to say, in person, it looks way better than it does on camera. So I'm wondering if maybe that's why people love it so much. Like on camera right now, I feel like it's showing like there's a lot of like the two colors are showing up as if there's a lot of distinction between them. Like looking at the camera, that looks to me like a very heavily modeled piece. In person, it's much softer. It doesn't look as harsh in person. It looks much more soft and like lightly variegated and modeled. So I wonder if that's why there's been such a discrepancy between how other people feel about it and how I was feeling about it. Because it looks way better in person. Who is this from? Oh, so this is Mountain Air Fabrics. This is Fall Dragonfly. I also bought fat quarters of these because I'm not really expecting to stitch a Mirabilia on them. Woodland Halloween. These are beautiful. They're softly modeled. I'm not going to show you every piece. Oh, lamb's wool. I love just plain old lamb's wool linen too. I just think it's a great color. It's just very natural looking, and I like that. This would be great to give my mother for that Pegasus piece, except that this is like a remnant. I had bought this fat half of Cream Belfast linen ages ago. This is a cross-stitch store that is no longer there, but was like my first LNS, and I loved them so much. But I have used this for so many pieces, so I only have like little scraps left at this point. Let's see if there's anything else. Here's Demoiselle from Picture This Plus. I got this from Fire Poppies. I do order from Fire Poppies sometimes. I like them. And Dappled Hollow from Picture This Plus, which I feel like I only have a really small piece left. My tag's gonna fall. This is all I have, but I might be able to fit some sort of cool fairy or something on there. I think it would look great. And then some more natural. So those were my 32 count linens. And then Yeah, these are all 30. So these are just 30, and I think they're all standard. I don't know if there's any hand dyers that, I guess this is Weeks. Weeks does, this is Seafoam from Weeks, and it's a 30. Other than Weeks, I don't know that there's any hand dyers who do 30 count. Maybe they would by request, I don't know. This is Morris Blue. These colors from Weeks are just stunning. Really, really love them. And these also, I tend to order fat quarters. I certainly could stitch Mirabilia on a 30 count. What else is in here? 30 count platinum. But my intention for these is that they more be what I pull from for smalls. If I did do a sampler or something primitive, more lambswool linen, and this lambswool looks more like a natural linen, like there's more variegation in the tones of the threads. Okay, so that's basically, this is like overwhelming. There's so much here. I know how I go about picking a fabric, but like picking a fabric and also showing you guys all my fabrics is just like I don't know how to do this. So those were my like odd counts of fabric, my 30, 32, 36, and 40 count fabrics. And I guess that one little scrap of 46. So I have tried, and this is a system in flux. It does not stay the same, okay? It changes over time. But my other fabrics, my like 28 count hand dyes, get stored in bags, in these cloth bags that I talked about. So I'm gonna start with this one, which is just like one of those crafty bags you can get from like Joann's or Michael's or whatever. My God, there's just so much. Let me see what's, so much. All right, I'm not gonna pull all of these out. Well, I should say, okay, so you know what I'm looking for and keeping an eye out for. Oops, sorry for moving you. So this one, Alice, it's small, first of all. Even on 32 count, it's only 8 3/4 inches wide. So I can do this one on a fat quarter. Plus I'm planning on leaving out the stuff in the background. So for this one, I'm looking for a fat quarter. And I don't really have a particular idea of what I'm looking for. There's lots of things I think might look good. A light blue and light green are kind of my go-to. Like greenish blue, greenish gray is what I go for a lot. But I'm gonna be looking at my fat quarter stash for this. When I can, I use a fat quarter if the design will fit on a fat quarter. If I don't find something I like in my fat quarter stash, then I'll absolutely go cut up a fat half. But when I can, I try to save the fat halves for designs that need a fat half. So this one I'll be looking kind of at my fat quarter stash for. For the August Peridot Fairy, this one is going to need a fat half, at least for me, for a 28 count, for me to be comfortable with the margins. I'm gonna be looking for fat half. So, and I have, well, I'll pull out some options as we're going. This is a lot of my color and cotton. These are all fat halves of color and cotton. I believe they're all fat halves. I was in the color and cotton fabric club. My daughter put them in like a kind of rainbow order for me. I was in, oh, sorry for banging you again. I was in the fat quarter club. I was in the color and cotton fabric club. Wait, is this color and cotton? Hold on, let me double check, because it might not be. No, it is. Okay. I was in their club for quite a long while. I actually just canceled it. I really, really have enough fabric. So no more color and cotton club. I'm still in their thread club. I love their threads, and I love kitting things up with their threads. So, and I also have, there's more. I know I also have, these are quarter yard, I mean, I don't even, this is why I need to organize. These are quarter yard cuts of color and cotton. This one's a half. I mean, why? I just have stuff. I have so much stuff. I also know that somewhere around here, there's more color and cotton. Somewhere around here, I have, it might even be in the bag. I have some full yards. Is this one? No. I do have some full yards of color and cotton because, maybe these are they. Here they are. I have these. I have a full yard of white tee and a full yard of raw muslin. I ordered those for chatelaines. Again, I'd like to stitch my chatelaines on 28 count. I'm not an expert chatelaine stitcher, never finished one, haven't even made it that far on the one that I do have going. I'm kind of an expert chatelaine shopper though. I do have several of them kitted up. And so starting next week, also, I should say, Maggie and I, she's Kitschy Whips on Instagram. I'll try to leave her information below. We are going to start Chatelaine Wednesdays, where we are going to, and I'll leave the hashtag below and stuff too. We need to get off our butts and start actually working on our chatelaines. I know I kind of like avoid my chatelaine as if it's like too precious to stitch. Like I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to make a mistake. I'm very intimidated by it. It just seems a little overwhelming, a little too much. And this is it back here. It's also huge. The one that I have going is Egypt Mandala Garden, but I have tons of others I would love to be working on too. So anyway, if you want to join us for Chatelaine Wednesdays, please do. We are committed to working on our chatelaines on Wednesdays, to putting some stitches in, so we are making some actual progress and getting some real enjoyment out of those amazing projects. But anyway, these are my 1 yard cuts, which I will not use for anything else. These are saved and dedicated for future chatelaines because I have a lot of them. That I have like the floss and bead packs, like the specialty packs from European Cross Stitch, but haven't chosen fabrics. I haven't started one yet. So these are for chatelaines. I'm just trying to see. I know I have a ton of color and cotton. Here's another color and cotton. They're kind of scattered. Color and cottons are a little bit scattered around. So I love stitching on color and cotton. The fabric, I'm kind of, I guess, giving my reviews of these companies as I go. The dye, in my experience, sometimes does run, but not excessively so, and I've never had a problem if I've pre-washed the fabric. Can't guarantee you won't have a problem, but I'm very comfortable pre-washing my color and cotton fabrics before I stitch on them, and then being comfortable washing the finished piece at the end and knowing or feeling like it's not likely it's going to, the dye is going to run and ruin my piece. So I really want to look in this bag for a match for this one right here. Now she has these really vibrant, very deep colors in her. I love the blues and greens on her wings, and so again, it's usually my go-to, but I'm feeling like a nice oh sorry, I keep tapping something, like gray green or blue green, nothing too bright. I want something that's going to fade into the background. So if I'm going to do color and cotton, I'm not likely to pick any of these. I've got a lot of just neutrals and some super bright colors that are beautiful, but probably not what I would pick for this. Pull out some blues and greens. Oh, they use staples. Yucky. Staples are causing a problem. And like I said, I will do an actual floss toss when I'm done at the end. So here's blue and greens. I'm not gonna do, oh, I wish you guys got better realistic look at the colors. This one's a bit too minty. It's pretty bright. So I'm not gonna do that one. I feel like Ozark is a little too like pastel-y. Fern is a maybe. I have 2 pieces of fern. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. I have that like, I don't want to cut into it. What if it ends up being the perfect piece of fabric to stitch some future thing on and I can't get it anymore? It shouldn't stop me from cutting up fabric, right? Then I don't get to use what I have and love, but kind of, no, it doesn't match my shirt. It's kind of similar though. But having 2 pieces of it makes it much easier to cut up, and I really love it. So I'm gonna set fern aside as a maybe for August Peridot Fairy. That's a definite maybe. I think that might look really good. Trade Wind is too gray for this. I think it doesn't have enough of another color in it. King's Blue I think is a bit too much color for it also. Stratus is a maybe. This is like a very gray blue. I think that'll do what I was talking about, like fade into the background. So I'm gonna set that aside for floss toss later. Okay, clearly I need to give up any thoughts I had of like cleaning up as doing this. That's not gonna happen. Okay, pushing things aside. There's just so much fabric. Okay, this is crazy. Let's talk about Picture This Plus. So I do have kind of an old stash of Picture This Plus fabrics. They do not fit well in this bag, but this is what I have. And these are fabrics that I haven't like already designated as going to a particular piece. My dog's moving now, so I can straighten my leg. She's very confused. Come here. Do you want to go up on the chair? No. Come here. She like can't even move around the room because there's piles of fabric everywhere. These are also Picture This Plus. So Valor I love. I have a couple of Mirabilias stitched up with Valor. It's almost like a go-to, like when there's a pretty lady in a garden. I feel like Valor gives that good like garden in the distance kind of background. Come here. Come here. Come here, sweetie. Come here. I'm gonna help. Come here. She'll figure it out eventually. Okay, this is perfect because I'm gonna point something out to you. This is Monster Mash. So this is a piece of Monster Mash I got probably within the last few years. Okay, through 1, 2, 3 stitch. See how it's green with some of like dark, kind of like grayish modeling? Oh, good girl. Good girl, Miss Freya. So this is what Monster Mash, in my experience, typically is when you order it. I'm gonna move you for a minute to point you up. See that Monster Mash up there? That woodland fairy with the yellow dress? I don't know if you can tell from this angle, but you could certainly go back and look at my older floss tubes. There's like light sky blue in that. Down at ooh, this is tricky. Down here is like light sky blue up behind her, all up along the top. Down here, it's actually like light sky blue. No light sky blue. So I stitched her on Monster Mash, and I love her, and I think it was a perfect fabric for her, and she's beautiful. Do not buy Monster Mash thinking that that's what you're gonna get, though. I think I just kind of got lucky. Well, I've seen other dyers do similar fabrics to that. I don't think you're gonna get that if you order it now. This is one of my favorite Do I have the tag in here? This is one of my favorite Picture This Plus colors. It's Storm. I don't even know if they're doing it anymore. But it's like a gray blue. This is a fat half. I love that one. I'll show you some highlights from in here. This is the Swamp that I love. I know it's like kind of icky acid green color, but I think it works great for like night forest background. Shadow, blacks and grays. Something will get done on these eventually. There's some other good ones. Stellar, purpley blue is very pretty. Oh, see here, okay, so here's some of the Monster Mash that I bought back when I bought this piece. And it's already been used a little. See, like, look at the difference. So this is all like light, like baby blue, like pastel blue. And this is what Monster Mash is now. Unless they've changed back to this. But this grouping of Monster Mash that I bought more than a decade ago is the only Monster Mash I've ever seen like that. So don't ask me to give you my Monster Mash. I'm sure I'm going to stitch another fairy on it at some point. Here we go, Haunted. This, I've put so many things on, or kitted up with so many things. It's like a great tealy blue. The one thing that I don't like as much about Picture This Plus fabrics is how heavily modeled some of them are. I tend to prefer a more softly modeled or like minimally modeled look. Kind of like Color and Cotton. I think Color Cotton's fabrics are stunning. Love how they do theirs. Let me see if I have... These are heavy. So that was my Picture This Plus stash. I didn't see anything in there that I particularly want to pull to do a floss toss on. Yes. Okay, my favorite, absolute favorite hand-dye company of all time, though, is Country Stitch. I was hoping this, I'm trying to find my favorite piece of fabric. Country Stitch, which is in New Zealand, I believe, so shipping's a bear. This one is Lagoon, and I think their website is just like Country Stitch. I don't know, I searched Country Stitch and it comes up. But they're in, like I said, I think New Zealand, so you need to also check the currency conversion depending on where you are. Their fabrics, to me, are much like Color and Cotton's. They're very soft, gentle modeling. There's nothing like harsh about their fabrics. Here's Wintergreen, which I love. This one's a fat quarter. These I kit up. Probably I've kitted up the majority of my Mirabilias with Country Stitch fabric. I just think it's so stunning. And I don't think I have any more pieces left as I like flip through here, but my favorite Country Stitch color is called Mithril, which is like a shout out to Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Mithril is like the best color. Oh, do I have some? Nope. They've got some amazing like bluey green colors. They also, okay, so they have this fabric called Southern Star, which they actually intended, so they dyed this for Stargazer. People have stitched Stargazer. They orient it like this is, they orient it like this. Now I had her dye it on a larger piece for me. It normally comes on a fat quarter because she's looking up to here. So they orient it so that's in the background behind her, and it's supposed to be like the night starry sky. And this is an opalescent. I had her dye a larger piece for me. I want to be a little more choosy. I'm not planning on putting Stargazer on it. I have already stitched Stargazer once. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it. I'm having ideas about one of the Teresa Wensler dragons. I think it's just called the Castle or something. The one where you get like half of one of the wings and he's like wrapped around a castle over the... I could just show it to you. I thought about doing this guy on that fabric, but I'm not positive. But I wanted to make sure I had it in my stash so that I could pull the trigger on it when I wanted to. So that's Southern Star from Country Stitch. Do they have their... I don't even know if they have their website on here. Yeah, it's just countrystitch.com. Also, her purples and blues. They do amazing dark purples and blues. I really like putting a lot of Mirabilias on like a deep purple. I like using a lot of like deeper and darker fabrics. You guys haven't seen all those because most of my mirrors are whips, not finishes. You'll see them eventually as I work on them. I love her purples and blues. You definitely do want to pre-wash these. I haven't had a problem with dye running as long as I've pre-washed and gotten any loose dye out first. And some of the darker colors you might have to pre-wash quite a bit, but it hasn't changed. Pre-washing should not, if the dyer has set the dye properly. Pre-washing, I shouldn't say this as a blanket statement. If the dye is intended to be color fast and the dyer has set the dye properly, rinsing out loose dye is not going to change the color of the fabric. And I've never had that problem with Country Stitch's fabrics. This purple here in front is Nightshade. Oh, it's so beautiful. I don't think it's right for anything I'm stitching here today, but it is so dang beautiful. This one's Inkwell. I know this one's just a fat quarter. I know I have a larger piece of Inkwell that I've kitted up with something. Her tealy blues are just stunning. This is Kermadec. And I know I have a fat half of Mithril somewhere, but I wonder if I've already kitted it up with things. That's Kermadec. Love that one. There's also, you know, if you're into more like samplery things, this is Silver Fern, which is like a very light green. I think it's lighter and kind of brighter than what I want for August Peridot Fairy. But I mean, there are plenty of more like neutrally sampler type colors too. Southern Sky, kind of a medium lavender purple. Oh, so beautiful. This is so fun just going through my bin of stuff. So many luscious fabrics. Little Boy Blue, I think is too bright for my August Peridot Fairy. Alright, so I'm left with some more like brighter things in here. Eucalyptus is pretty. I'm going to pull out Eucalyptus to do a floss toss on. It's a lot like the fern I pulled from Color and Cotton, but I will pull similar fabrics for a floss toss because if it turns out one of the, like a floss has a problem, like clashing with something, it helps to have options. Okay. So, Be Stitch Me. I love Be Stitch Me fabrics. I've placed some orders with her, and like I said, I was in her fabric club for quite a while. For a long time, I was in, I don't even know if my face was in there, sorry. For a long time, I was in the, I don't know, like just the regular club. So I was getting funky colors. I also have bought, I'm not doing it anymore, but I have bought a number of her boxes, the like seasonal mystery boxes and stuff. I'll actually still probably do the Halloween one. they're so fun. A lot of her fabrics are much wilder colors. Like this is, I think this might have come out of the box. This is Monster. I'm not going to show you all of them. Headless Horseman. Pretty sure this came out of the Halloween box. But like, so I already showed you my 36 count Be Stitch Me fabrics. These are 28 count. Most of them fat quarters. If I placed an individual order, it was usually for a fat half. But I'm not likely to choose any of these for, sorry, there's probably an Amazon delivery person coming to the door, is probably why my dog is like active now. I'm not likely to choose any of these for, or most of them, for for like a large Mirabilia, because either they're a fat quarter or they're like really brightly modeled. So like I bought this one, it's called Acid Rain, because that's just cool. And I feel like I'm gonna find something to go on that, but it's not gonna be, I'm gonna have to be in the mood to do something like that, right? Where I feel like the background, like this somehow looks like a flowery meadow. And maybe put a Bella Filipina on it or something. Now this one, so she does, I was trying to point out that Brandy, she does lots of wild and crazy fabrics, but she also has more softly modeled fabrics. This one's called Amazon. And I don't know. This one might be kind of cool for my August Peridot Fairy. I'm going to keep that out to do Floss Toss on. That one's a maybe. Okay. I have so many different dyers. So I organize my fabrics first by count and then by company. At least that's what I try to do. So you'll have seen some of these dyers before, but not in this count. So hand-dyed fabric by Stephanie is one of my favorites. These are my hand-dyed by Stephanie fabrics that are 28 count. These are all fat halves. The thing that I like about hand-dyed by Stephanie is that a lot of her fabrics are very colorful. There's a lot of different colors to them, but she manages to dye the fabric so that those colors blend into each other in a soft way instead of the harsh changes between colors. I'm more of a fan of like soft variation and modeling instead of that like harsh, now we're red, now we're orange kind of thing. I wish I could order all of her fabrics. They're just so stunning. This is Lady of the Lake. Blues and purples. You know what? I'm going to keep that out to do a floss toss on too for August Peridot Fairy. I don't want to do any August Peridot Fairy. There's a lot of dark colors in her, especially around the outside, so I don't want to do a dark background. So I'm not going to choose this one, which is more like medium tone but darker than I want to go. It's Ice Goddess. Fabric everywhere. Fraser's Ridge. Rhiannon. Oh, it's so pretty. There's so many colors in here, but they like blend softly into each other for the most part. I just think it's stunning. I really like the fabric, especially in a Mirabilia, to really set off the design. I don't want somebody just looking at the fabric, right? I want them to see the stitching too. That's what I'm going for. This is Gina. Oh my god, it's so pretty. Fairy or mermaid. This has to be a fairy or a mermaid. It's so pretty. Oh goodness, they could even do like garden verses on here, make it look like a garden in the background. So, so pretty. And this one is Stardust. Kind of greens and purples. What I have found, although I've always loved what I've gotten from Hand Dye by Stephanie, they don't always match. I feel like sometimes they're wildly different than what I expect. Yeah, they're sometimes wildly different than what I expect. I hate buying hand-dyed fabrics for a specific project. That's so hard. I feel like I never get what I expect or necessarily wanted. But if I just buy fabrics I love that I know in general will be good for a certain type of project, I have this great stash. It's pretty rare I can't find a fabric, you know, in this stash that would work for something. I also have Ship's Manor. So, is this also? I have a few fabrics from two fabrics from Ship's Manor that I think are beautiful. I have not used one yet, and I haven't pre-washed one yet. So I can't speak to how well that works. But this is Bliss, which needs a Mirabilia fairy on it. It's not what I was thinking, but I want to do a floss toss on this for August Peridot fairy. I'm going to do a floss toss and see what happens. And then this one is Whisper, which is mostly like minty greens. I think the Ship's Manor fabrics are gorgeous. Just haven't gotten around to using them yet. And then, looks like I have a bit of an issue with Seraphim. I've bought more Seraphim fabrics than I realized. Seraphim is another one, I would say even more than Hand Dyed by Stephanie. I love their fabrics. Pre-washing so far has gone well. But I don't end up with what I thought I was going to based on the picture. Companies like Country Stitch, I don't know if I'm just confusing the heck out of all of you by like throwing out all these dyers' names, and I apologize if I am, because that's not my intent. And I hope you're watching this with like another device with like internet pulled up and like checking companies' websites. Country Stitch, it's spot on. I get what I expected. That's been my experience so far. I feel like, and I know like monitor variability, you're never going to be like 100% and all, but I do think some companies' pictures are better than others. And I think certainly when you're dealing with a heavily modeled fabric, you know, if a fabric is yellow and blue and the dyer's taken a picture of mostly yellow and it turns out the fabric you get is mostly blue, it's going to surprise you, right? I feel like Country Stitch is just very good with their pictures. Some of the others I've struggled with more. And Seraphim is one that I've really struggled with ending up with what I thought I was going to end up with. This is Mysterious Woodlands. Now, I'm not saying that because I don't think you should order from them, but I'm saying, you know what, maybe order, I don't know how small they go, but like order a fat eighth or like order a small cut maybe first. I've certainly done that before if I'm really unsure about something. Order a really small cut, and so you can actually see the color. If you need a big piece, order a small piece first. See what it actually looks like, and then go back and order the big piece when you know you're happy with it. This is Petals in the Wind. I don't usually get lots of pinks to my fabrics, but this is like pink and blue, and I thought it would be a good addition because sometimes that is what, you know, I need. Actually, I think maybe a Lavender and Lace Angel might look really nice on this. I'm not going to go through like all of them. This is the Bold Witching Hour. One thing I do like about Seraphim's site is that some of the colors, they have like a bold, and then I don't know what they call it, but there's like a bold and a not bold option. So there's an option where the colors are more distinct from each other, and then an option where they're less so. This is gorgeous. What's it called? Snickering Pines? That's beautiful. It's just like a beautiful evergreen kind of color. They've got lots of great, this is probably why I have a number of theirs in like 36 and 40 count, or 36 or 40 count. Some of these colors are just fantastic for like samplery kind of stuff. And like this one is Summer Storm. Again, these are all linen. I would put any of the like elegant Mirabilia ladies on this in a heartbeat. They look phenomenal. Moss, I think I have two things of moss. Nope, this is moss and this is meadowgrass. They're very similar. They're actually almost indistinguishable. This one's a little bit darker. The moss is maybe slightly darker. I think if I was going to not use Laurel Linen for Ophelia from Mirabilia, I'd probably try one of these. And it would probably look good, I think. A more neutral one. And then this. I obviously had a lot of fun ordering fabric during the pandemic. A lot of my stash is either like 15 years old or brand new, like in the last couple of years. This is Carthangel? I don't know that I'm saying that right. But this is pretty. Like golds and blues. I like that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Sometimes I have a pattern that I want to stitch, and I go through my fabric to find the pattern for it, or to find the fabric that will look good with it. Sometimes I have a fabric that I just love, that I just fall in love with, and I'm like, I need to go find something to stitch on this. And doing this like stash dive is making it very hard not to get into that mode. Like I love matching up fabrics with projects, and this is making me want to just do that. I gotta get going. It's already over an hour. Holy moly. Okay, last bag. Oh. So these are my stash from Color Cascade Fabrics. They are an Australian dyer. I have not used any of their fabrics yet. Probably around the beginning of the pandemic, kind of early in my Flosstube viewing life. Belinda the Aussie Stitcher, I was watching her a lot, and I think she uses them a lot. And I decided to place an order. I mean, they're beautiful fabrics. Mostly pretty heavily modeled. This is After the Rain. This is Dark Side of the Moon. I do like stormy looking fabrics. Stormbringer. Purple Haze. And I think these were in a set. I think there's like a Stormy Sky set or something that you can buy. And then I ordered this one separately on a lark, but I only have a fat quarter of it. Belligerent Bog. That'll look good with something Halloween-y, I think. The fabrics are beautiful. I haven't washed any yet, so I can't speak to like color fastness. They smell. Some of you might think they smell awful. I don't like scents. I wouldn't say I'm like sensitive to them. I don't have allergies to perfumes and things. I just don't like them. I just think they smell gross. They are very, very heavily perfumed. And I wish companies would at least give you an option to like opt out of that, or give you a heads up, because it smells awful. One thing that was awesome about Color Cascade Fabrics that I did wait a very long time for these. Their website, you can go in and track where your fabric is in progress. Like it'll tell you if it's being dyed, if it's being washed, if it's being ironed. You can find out exactly where it is in the process. If it's like done and just awaiting shipment. I would think that solves a lot of their problems too, of like, you know, answering individual emails from tons of customers who are like, where's my fabric? So I really like that feature. I just wish it didn't smell so bad. What else? I have a bunch of my own, like, fabric I dyed myself in here too. Oh, and a tag that's come off something. That's helpful. Plastic. This is a group I need to make my own tags for. I love these fabrics though. I love, and the wash fastness, the color fastness is phenomenal. I've washed, let me see if I can find it. Yep, it's right here. Okay. So Sweet Stash fabrics, I don't think that a lot of people use them, but they're from Cross Stitch Boutique. I think it's like the owner of Cross Stitch Boutique who's the dyer. These fabrics are beautiful. This one's Midnight Sky. I would certainly pre-wash all of these. This one's Tidal Wave. I do need to get them out of the fabric. Medusa's Gaze. It's not that dark. Olive Dreams. Blues and greens. Oh, stunning. Misty Graveyard. This one's actually like an ombre. Like it's gray at the bottom and goes to blue at the top. And it's dyed for a certain Passione Ricamo piece. So I order from Cross Stitch Boutique pretty regularly. That's often where I get my Mirabilias, just so I'm not always ordering from 123 Stitch. I like trying to, you know, support other smaller businesses. But they're also a dyer. You do have to wait a ton of time for your dyed fabric. Hey, look at this. It's crazy. It's so beautiful though. So I bought this being like, what am I thinking, right? This is usually more my style. Like soft modeling. But I saw this and was like, I want to stitch on it. It's so crazy. What I actually am going to do with this, oh, so about washing. I washed this and I couldn't see any dye coming out. Now granted there's yellows in there, but there's a lot of blue too. Not like the look of the fabric didn't change a bit. It stayed exactly the way it was out of the package. And I was impressed. I feel like dye runs more than it needs to in a lot of the fabrics that I buy. I was very impressed to see that the dye was not running on this piece of fabric at all. And the fabric stayed so vibrant and beautiful. I am going, my plan, some of you, if you've watched my other floss tubes, you know I'm stitching Titania on black because it's stunning on black and I want to do that. Well, when I'm done, I'm going to stitch her on this. I don't know if it'll ever get done, but I feel like it'll make me really happy. Like this is one of those pieces that I know it'll just make me happy to bring her out sometime and stitch on this like super vibrant fabric. I don't know if it'll end up looking too busy when it's done. That's kind of not the point. I just want to do it because I think it'll be fun. So that's what I have from Sweet Stash Fabrics. I have one more on the way from them. I don't even know who that's from, so I'm not going to show it to you. These are from Pole Stitches. And I didn't even bother to keep the labels. They're pretty. They also smell really strong. Really, really strong. And I've had these in my stash, I think, for over a year, and they smell really strong. Now, Pole Stitches does not serge the edges, and maybe I'm just spoiled because so many companies do, but I have to admit, when it showed up unserged, I was like, really? It's not like I couldn't do it myself, but I don't even know that they were labeled. It'd be weird for me to throw away the bag without, like, labeling. This one looks like clouds. I'm not sure they showed up labeled, even. See the strings all hanging off. This was the one I've mentioned before that was horribly uneven. I lost a lot of this one. It was supposed to be a fat quarter. I lost a lot of this. I mean, it's really narrow now. It's not a fat quarter's width. I think it's only like 13 or 14 inches or something. Yeah, it was really bad. And I remember thinking, you know, maybe if they serged their fabric, somebody would have caught the fact that this one was like horribly uneven. That's okay. They're pretty. they will get used for something. I just don't know what yet. And I'm also keeping an eye out for fabric for Alice, especially with fat quarters, but I'm not really, I don't know, not really seeing anything that's striking my fancy yet. This is Hand Dyed by Rolanda. I really like Hand Dyed by Rolanda's fabrics. She's done some that are more softly modeled and kind of more drab like that. But what I would say she's more like known for is things like this. They're like crazy, and they're not the kind of thing that I'm likely to stitch a big Mirabilia on, unless I like the, you know, fancy strikes me on a whim, like the second Titania I'm planning on stitching. But I like doing things more like this for smaller pieces. I'm more likely to stitch a Nora Corbett on something like that, that's more like wild and crazy. And she has, I have bought some of her Luganas and stuff. This I thought was beautiful. It's, you can see like how the linen threads have kind of taken up the dye differently. These are all one-offs, so she updates her Etsy store periodically, and you know, she loads the fabrics individually. I think she loads scans of them. I get her opalescence sometimes, and it's kind of like you get it or you don't. I wonder, hi puppy. There. Let's see if that'll hold her. I wonder if that will look good for Alice. My daughter might like that. I'm going to keep that up for a floss toss for Alice. Oh, I need to speed up a little. I think I'll keep that out as a floss toss for Alice too. Like, some of these I buy, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. That's so not me. But it's like, get me in the right mood or the right piece, and this is going to be amazing. So that's Hand Dyed by Rolanda. She also has beautiful floss. I'm going to keep this out for a floss toss for Alice also. Also by Hand Dyed by Rolanda. I'm not going to take all these out. These are, you can't even see. This is full of fabrics that I dyed. I'll show you some of them. So this is what I was talking about, how I do a label. I just took scrap fabric, 28 count Zweigart linen, 27 by 36. I don't measure things out. Freya, stop it. Stop. I don't measure things out when I'm dyeing. I just like dump stuff. It's a very organic process. Stop it. Stop digging. She's gonna need attention soon. This is another one I dyed, just casual linen. I gotta stitch in some more of my own fabric. That's pretty. Very pretty. Just more. I usually dye fat halves, but at one point, I mean, I was just dyeing whatever like I could find in the house. I dyed some Monaco, and I kind of wish I hadn't because I didn't even put it in the dryer, but it's so tight now. It's not fun to stitch on. It's really not. I don't like having to try to stitch on the Monaco. It's another piece, like a scrap. I mean, I was literally like going around and like finding any white fabric I could find and dyeing. It was just fun. I've been dyeing yarn and roving for years, and it's like pandemic hit, and I was like, oh, cross stitch fabric. I haven't dyed that before. Let's try dyeing some cross stitch fabric. I got this deep purple. It will be too much for Alice. It's a smaller piece. This also was dyed on. I also dyed some natural linen to see how it would turn out. This was natural linen that I dyed because it just, you know, if your base fabric's a different color, it alters what you end up with. What is this? I don't even know what size fabric this is. It might have just been something I cut off of something else. Oh, I have stitched on my own a little bit. So those are my own fabrics. There's tons of them in here. If you guys want me to go into more detail about some at some point, you know, let me know, and I will. I didn't really see anything in my Be Stitch Me stack that I want to choose for Alice. So I've got a couple of fabrics pulled for a floss toss for August Peridot Fairy, and I've got a couple of fabrics pulled to check out for Alice. But I still need to find some standard fabric for that Teresa Wensler for my mom. So I have this bin that's very heavy. It's full of standard fabrics. And, you know, a lot of these were purchased, when a LNS is going out of business, and I've been doing this for years, they're going out of business, you know, I'll stock up on standard fabrics because I do use them for some things. They have their use. There's also, I don't know why I do this, but I also keep my crossed wing fabrics in with my standard fabrics. They all come in plastic. I do love crossed wing fabrics, but they die on Wisholt, which I don't mind. It's not my favorite, but I don't mind it. Here's some really old R&R reproductions fabrics that I have. I haven't even used any of these, but I have a bunch of these from an LNS from back in the day. The Heart's Content Glenshee linen. This one's 29 count. Have a whole bunch more crossed wing. I love crossed wing. Their fabric is beautiful. They're the color Midnight. This is Midnight. I love this, and I use it a lot. I just think it's absolutely stunning. They have some colorful fabrics, but also some more softly modeled fabrics. Oh, so much. Okay, now what's this? There's no label. I think I know what this is. There's this really long piece that used to be published in a magazine. You can now get it off of Facebook group. It's a Regency era ball. It was published originally in a British magazine in 3 panels. I'll try to dig it out for my next Flosstube to show you if I can. But it's so big, and I did want to stitch it on 28 count. It's so big that I needed a straight half in order to, like, it's really long and really short. So I think this is the cutoff from that, but I think I can use this for, that Pegasus. So I'll measure that and cut that later. You don't need to see me do that. So I also try to keep some standard fabrics like in stock, because I can always use them to stitch like something samplery or primitive. And like I said, I actually don't have any problem putting like Mirabilias on. So this is actually 2 yards of raw cashel linen. I love raw cashel linen. I think it's just classic and beautiful and love it. I've got some 28 count antique white, which I also try to keep in, and 28 count opalescent white. These, a shop down the street from me was going out of business. They had these at, you know, a phenomenal price. And just, I try to keep some on stock in case the dyeing whim takes me, but also for like Teresa Wenslers and things. Just some standard white and antique white. Also cream. Try to keep on hand. This sort of color, kind of a mossy green. I have some black in here. I have a lot of black because stitching on black used to be really, really easy. It's literally a yard. I don't need this in the plastic. Literally a yard of black cashel linen. I know I had like major plans to stitch things on black. This is 32 count. I have a yard of 32 count black. Does anyone want to stitch something black? Some really pretty, you know, just standard. Some of them are Wishelt, some of them are Zweigart. What is this? Oh, water lily. Some water lily linen. So I've used these a lot too. Here's more water lily. You used to be able to buy these in like Hobby Lobby. I don't know that you can anymore since I don't shop there anymore. But you can see like I bought a bunch when they went on clearance more than a decade ago. I had a whole lot of these and I've used a lot of them. This was fabric that I dyed. This was like, I think this fabric started as a pink that I was never gonna use. And I added like purple and red into it. I think it's a Lugana. I bought this so long ago and ended up with this. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. We'll see. Honestly, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking like there should be some giveaways or something in the future. I don't know if anybody would be interested in fabric I've dyed, but I don't know, it's a maybe. I'm gonna pull this for the floss toss for Alice as well. Okay, I'm gonna pause, switch the orientation of the camera if I can, clear a little bit of space in front of me, and see if we can do the floss toss. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay guys, I'm back. I'm gonna make this a little bit quick just because of how long this video already is. But, so this is how I go about actually picking a fabric. I do what we just did, although I do it faster because I'm not talking to people while doing it. And I also kind of, because of what size fabric I want and that sort of thing, I'm able to zero in more easily on where to start. But I pull fabrics that I think might work, and then here, so this is for Alice. Here are the options that I came up with. And I literally, so I do this before I put my flosses in their floss away bags. I literally just put everything down on the fabric. Now this is just a standard pink that I had pulled there at the end, and right away I'm gonna tell you, no, this is not doing it for me. And even though these might be shades of like her skin, there's just too much that's too close to this fabric. I do not want to use it. So that's gonna go back in the stash. And now I have a few more. I've got this one that has a more purpley background, and I've got a couple that are more bluish backgrounds. I honestly think, and they're all the right size, they're all fat quarters, which is more than enough. I think any one of these would work. These purples are a little bit close to that background. And I'm also trying to think about what my daughter, what her preferences are likely to be, since this is being stitched at her request. I think the blues look much better with these because there's more contrast. This is a little bit close for my tastes, and that's here at the bottom. I also always look for where that color is used in the piece, because if I have a floss that matches the background fabric, but it's used in the very center of the design and it's completely surrounded by other colors, I still might, that might be a fine color to use. That won't necessarily keep me from using it. This one's down there. I think it would be okay. I think it would end up looking okay. These two fabrics are very similar. This one's just a little bit brighter, and of course it's opalescent. So I really want to see how these look on here, because I suspect it would be my daughter's choice. I don't even know if I use these since I'm not stitching that background stuff, but that's okay. They'll get used for something. Plus, Nora, I think, tends to use the same water lilies colors over and over and over again. I'm just going to try to spread this out more. It's a good idea to open your fabric up completely if you can. So I'm looking for the overall look. I want there to be some contrast between the back fabric, the fabric and my floss, and I don't want any of the flosses that are going to be on the edge of the design to be too close to the background fabric. Same thing with the bead colors, especially like Stargazer. If you have beads that are off in the middle of nowhere, I don't want those beads to blend in with the background fabric. But I like this. I think this looks good. I think my daughter will be happy with it. I think it'll be fun to stitch on. And this is just a 28 count opalescent. I think this one is it is a linen. So yay, found my fabric for Alice. So that's gonna work for her. If I can move this aside without making too much of a mess. Probably can't. Wrap all this up. Move it over. And then the other one, sorry while I'm off camera, the other one is for August Peridot Fairy. So this is what I'm trying to find a fabric for. I've got all my materials in here and a copy of the pattern, which hopefully I'm not going to show you. These obviously will need to go in floss away bags. Well, for me, because that's how I do it, they'll go in floss away bags, but they've just been jumbled in there for probably a year or more. So here's all my floss. Some of them are skeins that were used in other projects before. Trying to make sure I'm in frame. I do not have a sophisticated setup here. So I'm hoping this is visible for everybody. Okay, so here's my floss. And this is hard. I feel like so many things would look good. Now I pulled a number of these like kind of mossy green colors, which I think would be fine, but looking at it with the design and with the floss colors, it's just not quite grabbing me. It's not quite doing it. So I'm going to set those aside. This Stratus would be fine, but as I'm sitting here with the flosses in front of me and the fabrics in front of me, what I'm really loving is the idea of having a brighter fabric. Like, I love how she's so dark along the edges, and then on the inside has these really bright shades, right? The really bright, like, yellow, green, and blue, and the really bright purple shades, and I need to watch for that. I need to make sure her headdress doesn't get lost. But I'm thinking I might really like the way one of these plays with that, how she's dark on the outside but bright on the inside. I feel like one of these might really bring out that brightness. So I'm actually gonna kind of open these up a little bit more so I can really spread the floss out. I'm sorry the lighting is like not the best here. It's good in person. In person I have both overhead light that is quite bright and good to stitch with, and very, very white light, but I also have the sliding glass door over that way, giving lots of beautiful natural light. But I know if I try to film in front of that, closer to that natural light, it blows everything out. So here's her colors on here, and I love the like tealy blues and light purples that are in here. I think the only possible problem is that headdress, which I can look in the pattern, but is going to be some combination, I think, of these shades here. So I'm just going to pull them to look at them specifically against this fabric, and I don't think they're getting lost. These are going to be in the inside of her wing. I feel like this fabric, which is Bliss from Ship's Manor, I think this fabric is going to look amazing. This one is probably the closest in some places. and I think is probably used up here in her headdress and maybe in her gown some, or her wings. But I can also, since this is a fat half, I can also play some with where she's placed on the fabric, to make sure that her headdress is maybe against like a greener part of the fabric where it's going to show up really well. So I'm pretty happy with this option. Oh, you can also look at the beads. The beads aren't usually, I don't find are usually a problem. There's some treasures for her. Yeah, I think these beads are going to look gorgeous on the fabric, especially the purples. I think they'll look amazing. I had this other one also. This is Fabrics by Stephanie, Lady of the Lake. I'm just going to move these over to see what they look like. And I can tell already, I think this might be a nice option too, but it's not the one I'm going to pick. This is more purple. There's not as much green. This is more of like a blue and purple. I think it would look fine. I think there's some similar issues. I think this floss in particular, this is DMC 159. You'd have a harder time making sure stood out from this one than I will over here. I think on the Bliss from Ship's Manor, I'm going to have an easier time placing her so that headdress doesn't blend in with the background too much. I apologize if you can hear my stomach rumbling. It's clearly lunchtime. So I think, although this would be fine, I feel like this is more me. I'm just feeling this one more for this pattern. Move everything back over. So I can save the hand dye by Stephanie for something else. And I think this is it. I'm going to go with the Bliss by Ship's Manor. It's 28 count cashel. These beautiful blues and greens and purples. I think this is going to be stunning. All right, I'm going to turn the camera around so that I can like face you and talk to you again. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. A little close to you guys. Okay. Yay, I found my fabric. And I have a huge mess around me. Sorry for the crinkles. The bad part about doing this is that like it's so fun and I want to keep going. And I want to grab my Mirabilias and find fabrics for all of them. Slow down. They don't all need to be done at once. I hope that was what some of you were looking for. I had requests to go through my fabric stash. I wanted to just kind of give you a little taste of each of them and kind of my opinions of my experiences with each of the companies, and just, you know, my thoughts on them, some benefits and drawbacks of each of them. Hopefully I did that okay. I'm such a noob. And a lot of you had asked specifically for me to do like a floss toss and show how I pick fabrics. I hope I did that okay. I mean, that's a lot of it's just how I feel, right? Like I put everything on the fabric and I want to make sure I'm not going to lose any of the floss colors that are going to be right up, that are edge stitches, that are going to be against the fabric. I want to make sure you're seeing the stitching more than the fabric, that the fabric is enhancing the stitching instead of taking away from it. And then a lot of it's just like feel. It's just like, oh yeah, that's beautiful. And that's totally going to vary from person to person. I want to say too, there's, you know, I can't be the only one who's had this experience where like if you're looking through other people's projects, you might find a project that's beautifully stitched, but you're like, I would not have chosen that fabric, right? But that's fine. Other people see mine, I'm sure, and are sometimes like, ooh, especially, you can't see it in frame anymore, but the Woodland Fairy I did on Monster Mash, I'm sure there's people out there who were like, what was she thinking? You know, they might hate it, but I love it. It was so fun to stitch on, and I love the way it looks. So a lot of it's just that like gut feeling. And like you would have seen, you know, when I'm stitching the Peridot Fairy and picking the fabric for that, I'm going all by what I like, really. But the Alice that I'm really stitching for my daughter, I gotta keep in mind what she's gonna like. And she's gonna like the sparkly fabric more. I'm less of a sparkly fabric person. She's totally a sparkly fabric person. So, and I don't, at least yet, I have not experienced difficulty stitching on opalescent. I know some people really do. I haven't had that problem, at least not yet. Famous last words, right? Because I used to be like, what's the big deal about stitching on black? And I bought yards of the stuff, and now obviously I'm like, oh my god, I can't stitch on black. So lesson learned, maybe. But I don't mind stitching on it, so I may as well use my opalescent fabrics. Well, I guess I still can. So I have picked, I did want to say about the Ship's Manor fabric, the Bliss that I picked for Peridot Fairy. Well, and the fabric I picked for Alice. Those will be what I will stitch on unless they change color when I wash them. I do not expect the Hand Dye by Rolanda fabric to do that. I've washed a lot of her fabrics. I've never seen any color bleed into the water. That doesn't mean it never would or could happen. But I've had zero experience with that fabric bleeding. It just hasn't for me in the past. And I love kitting things up with her fabric. I love doing smaller projects on like wilder, crazier fabrics. It's like less of an investment, so I don't mind, I guess, being wilder, like less of a time investment. So I feel more willing to experiment and do something different with it. The Ship's Manor, I have no experience with. Let's see what their tag says. Their tag doesn't say anything about washing instructions. I could probably find washing instructions if I went to their website, but I'm just going to wash it the way I always do, which is initially with Synthropol. You can get Synthropol on Amazon. They, the purpose of Synthropol is to keep loose dye molecules in solution so it doesn't redeposit onto your fabric or your stitching. But I always pre-wash with Synthropol. If I see any loose dye in the water, then there's going to be lots of rinsing involved, maybe multiple washes with Synthropol, and I will dry the fabric over a white paper towel, air dry it over a white paper towel on my, I have a drying rack for dyeing projects, so I don't ruin all of our clothing with loose dye. And as long as that white paper towel comes away still white and I don't see dye deposited on it, and as long as it doesn't change, the Ship's Manor fabric doesn't change color, then that'll be my choice. And I'm actually really excited and can't wait to get started. So this might be Mirabilia whip number 64 soon. I don't know, we'll see. I will try, so this is gonna be a long video, but what I will try to do is list the companies whose fabrics I showed you in the description. And I might even, if I have the time, try to write like some like pros and cons or kind of like cheat sheet of my experience with each of those dyers' companies. Under the Sea Fabrics, I did want to mention, because you didn't see any of their fabric here, I do have one of their fabrics somewhere. I don't buy Under the Sea, I did once. I bought the fabric for, oh my god, the big Autumn Lane Stitch Along. Dark Queen of the Sea, which I have as a web somewhere. I ended up stitching Dark Queen of the Sea on a fabric that I dyed. I bought the fabric from Under the Sea Fabrics, and I know she says not to wash her fabrics, but a lot of companies say not to wash their fabrics, and it was only a fat quarter, and I wanted to experiment and see if you actually couldn't wash the fabric. So I washed it, because there was no way I was going to stitch something that huge without being able to wash the piece. Dye came out. There's still some color on the fabric, but it's very washed out. And I'm not saying this as a criticism of Under the Sea Fabrics. Her fabrics are beautiful, and if you don't wash your fabrics, there's no problem. I really like being able to wash my fabrics. I am a much more relaxed stitcher, knowing that if my kid spills his milk all over my stitching, or what, because that stuff happens. Somebody will come in from outside all muddy and jump in my lap while I'm stitching, and now there's mud all over my stitching. That stuff happens. And I'm not gonna get too mad about it with my kids. Like, stuff happens, and I want to know that I can wash the piece when it's over. So I don't buy Under the Sea fabrics. It's not because there's anything wrong with the fabrics. They just don't fit my stitching style and my lifestyle. So that's why I didn't have any of that to show you here. If you have questions, I would be happy to try to answer them. And if any of you out there are like, I really want to know like some detailed close-ups of some of those companies or something, I can try to do that. But we would be here for 8 hours. Like, it would be way more than my Mirabilia stash dive if I actually showed you each and every piece of fabric. So I'm going to eat lunch, and then I'm going to do a lot of cleanup, and then see if maybe I can start getting this uploaded tonight. I should have said today is Friday, March 4th, I believe. Hopefully this will be up by sometime Saturday. And thanks, guys. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all really enjoying your stitching. I'm looking forward to a good stitching weekend. I hope you guys are too. And we're supposed to start getting some nicer weather. This weekend we're supposed to be like our first really nice, I think, spring weekend here in Pittsburgh with some higher temperatures. So I'm looking forward to that too, and maybe some stitching outside. So guys, I hope you have fun. Thanks for joining me on this, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey guys, just a quick postscript that I forgot to address. Helen Honey, who won the giveaway of the Ophelia chart. I have not heard from you. I need to hear from you by next Tuesday. That would be March 8th. If I have not heard from you by March 8th, I am going to redraw from that video, the video with the initial giveaway. I will go back to those comments and redraw for a new winner. So please email me. I'll list my email below again. It's fiberartsamy@gmail.com. Please email me if you want your chart, because I'd love to get that in the mail to you. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.